Hello, I'm Courtney Walsh with the Salmon Proctor Oral History Program. Today is March 25th, 2021. I am here with
Jen Burgess.
And we're going to be talking about the Machen Florida Opportunity Scholars Program. So thank you so much for speaking with me today. Just a quick question to start. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like your hometown, your family, maybe what high school you went to, stuff like that.
That's like a throwback. So I was originally from Jacksonville, Florida. I went to high school there at Samuel W. Wolfson High School. Go Wolfpack. So my family situation is, I don't know if I could say it was unique, but my family, basically I was raised by my mom after about middle school. She worked at a school. We lived a very humble lifestyle. And UF was kind of I went to UF in 2010 to 2014. So UF was what I dreamed of my entire childhood. Things would be really hard at home. And I remember just being like, it's okay, because if I do well in school, I can go to a college and kind of form my own future. So that's kind of the beginnings.
Awesome. And what was your major at UF and how has it transitioned into what you do now?
That's a great question. So my major was family, youth, and community sciences, and my minor was nonprofit organizational leadership. And so that has morphed into a lot of things going into the professional world. So I started actually at Baby Gator on campus as a preschool teacher. I had worked there all through college, and it was a great first stepping stone into the professional career. They provided a lot of just support and leadership training. And so I loved Baby Gator, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do professionally for the rest of my life. And as a child, we had some involvement with the child welfare system. And so I knew that I wanted to do something in that area. So I applied for an organization in Gainesville, and they focus on ensuring that children who have been from abusive or neglectful situations can go to the most appropriate placement. So whether that's working with biological parents to get their children back or working with adoptive parents, we were making sure kids got the services they need and then a placement that would be just right for them for the future, whatever that might look like. So I worked in that organization for about 4 years. And again, I wanted more. And so I kind of, in my role in this organization, I kind of found my desire was to walk alongside kids in a more holistic way, in a way that would be really beneficial to them. And so I wanted to do it better. And so I decided to go back to school. And so now I'm in school pursuing a graduate degree in clinical mental health counseling. And there's talk in the future about either starting a nonprofit or, things are up in the air, but it's an exciting time.
That's amazing. Congratulations. And so you said that UF was always your dream. Before you applied to UF or when you applied to UF, did you know anything about the MFOS program?
I had no idea. I honestly, I applied to 3 schools. One of them was, you know how you apply for a school and you're like, I'm definitely going to get into this school. It's like your fallback. And then I applied to a private university, and then I applied to UF. I'm in the firm belief that the fact that I was even accepted into UF was like a miracle. And I had to decide whether I was going to go to UF for this fallback school that day. Like, I had waited until the deadline because I wanted to go to UF, but I come from poverty. So in my mind, I'm like, Bright Futures will only cover so far. I don't want to live in debt. Honestly, I didn't know the educational process. Like, I had no idea you could get loans for school. I thought you just had to pay for it. no one in my family had gone to college. So it was kind of navigating those waters independently. And the day that I was going to choose my fallback school, like literally the day of, it's wild. I got an email saying that I had been accepted into the Machen Florida Opportunity Scholarship program. And I was like, what is this? Like, it almost felt like it was too good to be true. And I was like, this is like a hoax. And so that day I was like, okay, like UF it is. And I was so excited.
That is awesome. So, what was some of the things that you were involved in at UF? You said Baby Gator. Were you involved in any other organizations?
Yes. So I was a part of two main things. I had other involvement here or there. The first was for 4 years, I was in the Florida Gator marching band, which was a really cool experience. And then I was also involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Awesome. And so when you got to UF, was your first generation identity something you had realized before coming to college, or was it something that started to impact you as you got to college? And then how did you navigate UF there on out, knowing that?
Right. So I remember back in the application process of applying for schools, realizing some dissonance between myself and some of my more privileged classmates who their parents were like paying for ton of applications to different schools and giving a lot of feedback of like what their essay should look like. And I was navigating it alone. Also, because I received free lunch, I believe. I don't remember how I got it, but you could apply for 3 schools. So that's why I applied for the 3, and they would pay for your application fee. So I was like, all right, like 3 schools it is. So I think that's when I first realized the difference in my classmates and then me. And then when I moved to UF, I did so very independently. I was dropped off at preview by a friend. Like a friend decided to drive me from Jacksonville so that I could go. And then just like even with like moving into the dorms, navigating classes, struggling in classes, a lot of people called their parents and I didn't have that. And if I did contact a parent, it was like, I have no idea. I didn't go to school. And so it was a very lonely place in trying to navigate. And you almost don't want to show your cards to your classmates because they almost have a leg up. I also my high school was amazing. I was really supported there, but it wasn't this amazing school. It was a low income area. And so even like the educational level, I felt like other people were coming in with like college credits already. So I think in a economic way, an educational way, a support way, applying for loans, I felt 10 steps behind. And I believe this was part of your question, but the at that time it was called the Florida Opportunity Scholarship. And so I was lost. I was navigated 6 months into my college experience. I was actually in a caving accident where 2 of my really close friends from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, they passed away in that caving accident. And so I was dealing with grief on top of being the beginning of my spring semester of college. And Leslie Pendleton called me into her office and I was like, listen, I don't even know if I'm going to get this scholarship again because I am a mess. I barely got through this semester. And she came alongside me in a fierce way and kind of filled that void of what I had in a parent and referred me to counseling. And it's really cool because that's where the seed was planted for me to pursue counseling now. So the scholarship came after me in a really big way that I don't think without it, I would have graduated.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that you went through something like that in college. But so MFOS, obviously you said came after you in a fierce way and helped you. Throughout the rest of your college experience, or even prior to that, was there any other resources that they provided or you have provided that you feel like were really indispensable to your college career?
That's a great question. So one is like the mentorship. So Leslie was a huge mentor. She referred me for counseling. After the caving accident, I just realized some barriers in the way I learned, in the way that other people learned. And so the scholarship actually helped me get the appropriate testing done with, I think it's the, gosh, I forget the name of it. It's like it's near like Broward Hall. I forget the name of it. It's like the disability.
Oh, the DRC, the Disability Resource
Yes.
Center. Okay.
Yes. So they referred me to the Disability Resource Center. I got a lot of testing done. It provided some insight into how I could better learn, which helped my professors know how I'm learning. So the scholarship program was a big part of that. Also, I was able to be a mentor under the Machen Florida Opportunity Scholarship program. So I was able to learn just leadership, how to use what I've been through to kind of shepherd along other first generation college students, which was a huge part of how I've been able to be successful in my career, is just learning how to be a leader. And so they did a lot for me personally.
Was there any faculty mentors that you really looked up to at your time at UF?
So I had quite a few. One was the counselor that I saw is actually a faculty member at UF. Her name is Megan Sixby. She was a huge part of just continuing the fight to keep going. She planted the seed of grad school in my freshman year of college. And she'll send me an email every now and then, like, hope you're doing well. Another person that was, or two people that were of huge impact were my two band directors, John Watkins and Chip Berkner. I don't even know if they would realize the impact that they had on me, but my friend who passed away in the caving accident was also a member of the marching band. And they just were so protective and honoring. And I still run into them when I'm in Gainesville, and they'll give me a big hug and ask how I'm doing. So they were a really big part of my kind of journey too.
So has MFOS changed the way that you view yourself and your own purpose?
I would say so. So I think one, if it weren't for MFOS, I would have not gone to the University of Florida, and I would not be where I am now. I needed to get out of Jacksonville and kind of become my own person. And I think that I needed to learn to ask for help. And a big part of that was talking to Leslie about what was going on in my life. A lot of that was taking her suggestions and realizing this isn't because something is wrong with me. Like, I'm going to talk to my professor about my hurdles because they want to know and they want to care and they want to see me successful. And so learning to ask for help in those beginning days helped me graduate from the program. And it also helped me in a career when I'm overwhelmed, asking my supervisor, hey, like, this is what I'm experiencing. Can I have some help, please? Or when I'm just in life and I need help from a friend, like, I have a lot going on. Can you walk alongside me? And so that might not be the typical answer, it might be, but I think the biggest thing was asking for help and accepting it, not because of an error within me, but it's because we're all meant to come alongside each other and be in the journey.
Awesome. And going off of that, what advice would you give to first generation college students, knowing what you know now?
I think I would tell them to become connected to just adults as quickly as possible. The dissonance that occurs when you're stepping into a university for the first time, especially a large university like the University of Florida, it can be really intimidating. And so I think honoring the fear that you have and reconciling that this is a really big change and that you can't do it alone. And so I think getting to know people like Leslie, and I know they have other faculty now too, and staff. So like getting to know those people, being really connected with your mentor, because having a peer who's walking alongside it too is sometimes a little more disarming than going to a faculty. Get to know your professors. I heard that maybe 1,000 times going to a ton of like the MFOS orientations, and we would have these meetings and they would always say, get to know your professor. In that first semester, I was like, ugh, like that's such typical advice. But it is the best thing you can do. I had professors where I was like, I need extra time, and they would give it to me. And I think you think that this is some authority that they just want to get you or or something like that, but they don't. They really care. And so my biggest advice is to reach out for help, and before you even need the help. And it's not bad to have faculty who know your name. It's actually a good thing.
Okay, and so knowing your major, which I guess you could call it's in the humanities, liberal arts department, did you ever feel any pressure as a first generation student to pursue STEM, a STEM degree?
I honestly, I didn't. So I came into the program studying education, and then I actually changed that my freshman year. Um, a lot of my friends were pursuing like engineering. A lot of my friends were pursuing like the medical side of things. So sometimes I felt a little bit less than. My classes were sometimes easier than theirs, but I knew who I was and that I wanted to help people. And I just knew that math and science are not my strong points. So I kind of knew that part of me before coming in.
And as a first generation student at UF, was there any times that you ever struggled in relation to your peers? I know you said earlier sometimes you felt like they had more privilege. Was there ever a time where that really reared its head and you felt like you were kind of a couple steps behind, or that they had more that they knew about college that you didn't?
Yes, for sure. So I kind of talked about this before. So it was especially in the beginning while I was trying to learn. I don't even know if that's true. I think it was this theme throughout the college experience. So I think this understanding of what it's like to go to college, a lot of my friends actually had parents who went to the University of Florida. And so a lot of them had people coming alongside them at preview. They had people who kind of knew different professors or knew where buildings were. And I'm like looking at the map, like how on earth do you get from the engineering building to Norman Hall in 15 minutes? I have no idea. That involved a lot of sweaty bike rides, in case you were wondering. So that aspect of it, but also leading up to graduation and kind of figuring out what to do next with a career, or moving out. That transition from college to adulthood was extremely difficult. I didn't have parents that I could go live with if I couldn't find a career. I didn't have parents who navigated going from college to a career. And so there was this huge divide. I didn't have a lot of support going into graduation. So there was always this theme of people knowing who to ask and me kind of being like, oh, this is really hard. Do I ask a faculty for help, or do I try to figure it out on my own? And different times called for different methods.
And you just said navigating from college into a career. Do you feel like MFOS helped prepare you for that transition? I know it's a really big transition into the quote unquote real world.
Right. I think they did. So MFOS provided a lot of, I remember there were, like, I did not know about checkbooks before coming to college. I knew nothing about having money and knowing how to manage it. So one, the scholarship program allowed a lot of academic knowledge of how do you just be a part of college, but also there was a lot of financial literacy. There was a lot of support. I remember going to different, I think Leslie at the time was the only main faculty member. So I remember her going to her and her looking at my classes and kind of figuring out, okay, you need this to graduate. Like, how are we going to get there? And then what is the next step after? So they were really supportive with that transition. I think the reality is it's just hard for anybody, but it felt especially difficult.
I just forgot my question. I had a good question too. Okay, so now that you are in the real world, and does your first generation identity still, I guess, follow you into the real world, and how does that impact you now?
I was actually just talking to someone about this. So as a first generation college, it kind of followed me into grad school. Like I didn't know, I guess, how easy it was to get loans for grad school. Like there was still some of that dissonance and like, and the courage. Like I've already gotten a bachelor's degree. Like, have I kind of ran out of my luck? And like, am I even capable of grad school? So I think some of that confidence is kind of a dissonance in my peers and then myself, but also just the reality of, so a lot of my peers don't have to work while they're in school, or their parents are paying for their grad school experience, or they've had the opportunity to go straight from undergrad into grad school. So I think that is a very prominent sign of being a first generation college student, but also just having to work really hard. And so I'm at a place where I have a job interview this afternoon because I have to be working in order to kind of fund my grad school experience. And I've had some people from my even personal life, not just educational life, being like, how are you going to do it both? And just explaining to people, I don't have people to fall back on. Like, this is me. Like, this is my responsibility. And if this is a degree I want to pursue, and in order to advance, like, I have to work or I'm going to have $5 in my bank account. I don't have all these people I can call on when I need the extra help. And I don't have the privilege of, I think, not having like continuous building of my resume. A lot of finding jobs when you graduate is who you know. And when you don't have, that might be not be the exact statement, but a lot of my friends now found jobs through their parents who knew the right people. So it definitely followed in adulthood, but I had a lot of tools from my undergraduate experience to kind of overcome those barriers now.
Is there any support for first generation graduate students at schools?
So at University of Florida, there was a lot. I'm now at the University of Central Florida. And it's just not as big of a thing as it was at UF. I don't know. I don't want to discredit them. It's been a great experience. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic. So our interview was online. We started classes online. So it could be very well because of that, but you don't hear it as often or as much as I did at UF.
So at UF, did you feel safer and more secure in your first generation identity than you do now?
For sure. So the scholarship program almost made it like this thing to be really proud of. Like, I'm a first generation college student and I'm doing this thing. Like, I'm really strong because I'm able to do this with a barrier. And so it's not something that I was super afraid to tell my classmates, my friends, my faculty members of my different classes. But now I don't know if it's because it's graduate school or what the barrier is, but now that I'm in school again, it's not something I feel super comfortable talking to my professors about or even mentioning as a barrier. So there's definitely this difference in support and comfortability, if that's a
So
word.
it is. So what keeps you motivated to keep up your drive? And you have an amazing work ethic and you're out there doing these amazing things. What keeps you motivated in times where you're working so hard? Like you said, you have a job interview.
You broke up in that last segment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just saying what keeps you motivated? Like you said, you have a job interview, you have to keep moving forward. What is really like pushing you forward to do that stuff?
So kind of my life motto is be who you needed when you were younger. And I think that is my biggest drive in the world. And so whether that's kids in the foster care system or my peers in class or the people I'll be hopefully working with in this new job, I just feel a very specific call to be with people who are hurting and support them. So that's probably my biggest motivation, is wanting to be with people, but wanting to do it well. So that's a really big drive. Another drive is honestly wanting to have a better life than what I had in childhood. I would be lying if I didn't say that there's this like self-preservation part of me that just wants just a more stable and comfortable lifestyle, because I think when you're more comfortable, you have more of an ability to work with different people and have a good professional career. And I think the last is having people who really push me. So I still see Leslie sometimes, and she still is like, get after it, girl. And then still see different professors from UF. Kate Fletcher was a big one. I still talk to her every now and then, and she'll say how proud she is. Just people in my personal life who accept the fact that my life looks a little different. And I'm very lucky to have the community that I have, who, when I'm feeling a little down, they're like, come on, you can do this.
That's amazing. And so when you were a part of MFOS, were you a mentor? And how did that impact your experience at UF?
I was a mentor with MFOS. It was this really cool process of being brought into something and something bigger than yourself. So I mentored for, I believe, a year, and I believe it was my senior year. So from the interview process to like the actual mentorship, the interview process, meeting some big names of people who have been involved with the scholarship program and having those faculty really believe in you, and then getting your batch of, I believe it was 3 or 4 students who you mentor throughout the year. And I still talk to a few of them and get to see how they're doing and how they're progressing in life. But they had been going through some really hard things. And I think just being able to say me too, and how can I come alongside you? Why don't you talk to this person? Have you tried this? And so I think kind of it's why I'm in the counseling field at this point. I think, again, sitting with people in hard moments and acknowledging that there is help, but not becoming, there's a book called When Helping Hurts. So creating sustainable methods of help for other people.
And you had a mentor as well, correct? So how did that influence? Oh, sorry.
I did.
Okay, cool. So how did that influence you in the reverse?
So I wish, this is hard because I wish I had had a better experience. My mentor was very busy. She would reach out every now and then, but I didn't get to see her often. But I honestly, it taught me a big lesson in being accountable to the people that you've agreed to mentor and lead and guide. So I remember when I became a mentor, I was like, I am going to be there. I'm going to support these students. And even now in life, like if I say that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well.
And how did graduation day feel? Graduating from MFOS and graduating from UF, how did that feel for you?
It was maybe the most exciting day of my life. So I had the opportunity and I promise this isn't a rabbit trail, but I had the opportunity with MFOS to speak at a few events in my time, just about some hurdles I overcame and how the scholarship program came alongside me. And because of those opportunities, I got to know Bernie Machen really well. And it was just a really unique opportunity. So I remember just like gearing up for graduation, and you put the cap and gown on, and it's just something I had dreamed of my entire life. And just being a part of the crowd, and then walking across the stage and getting a huge hug from Bernie Machen, saying, "Great job, like you've done it." So it felt like I had did it, like I reached my goal, and it was a really beautiful moment.
That's awesome. If you want to talk a little bit about your relationship or how Bernie Machen is, I don't think we've had an interviewee yet that has explicitly met him, so that'd be really cool to hear about.
So I met him. I had a few opportunities within the program to speak at different events. And there was one that I went to in Jacksonville where Bernie Machen was present, and then also at the completion of my scholarship program. And at both of those, I was able to tell my story and just, again, the hurdles that I've overcome and the impact that the program had on me. And then also a part of, this is a side note, a part of being in band, we actually had this like dedicated moment where we spelled out, I don't know if it was Bernie or Machen or both, but we framed those pictures for him when he retired. So it was really cool. Like at any event that I spoke at, he just was really diligent in coming up to me and being like, "Thank you so much for your work in the program. Thank you so much for your story and being willing to share it." It was just a beautiful thing. And it made me wear my little, at that time, again, it was FOS, my little FOS pin with pride. He would always comment on it when he saw it. So he was a really good support. Obviously, he was a busy man, but whenever he could, he took time to be intentional.
That is lovely. I think that is all the questions I have. I have one left, but I will save that for the last question. If there's anything else that you want to touch on or say, the floor is yours. We'd be happy to hear anything. Very broad, I know.
Well, I think if I were to say, sorry, there you are. I think if I were to say anything, and if I were speaking directly to students, well, I have one. I have one for students, and I have one for the people who have impacted me. So for the students, I would say take that dream that you had at the beginning of finding out that you were accepted into the University of Florida. Like, take that fire that you get. Like, for me, it was online and you saw accepted, and it's just this energy that comes. Like, take that energy and really pursue your goals with that same fire throughout the university experience, because when you are really digging in and planting your feet in the ground and realizing why you are at school, it is a really powerful thing. Undergrad is kind of the stepping stone into the professional world. I know that I struggled with the relaxation of it. Like, there's big classes, so there were a lot of times I didn't go to class, or there were a lot of times that I didn't take all the opportunities that I could. And that would probably be my one regret, is really dig in and see this as like the first step in so many. And just because you're a first generation college student doesn't mean that you have the same capabilities, the same possibilities as students who came in with parents who had gone to college. And then my message to the faculty at the University of Florida, the faculty and staff of the Machen Florida Opportunity Scholarship program, would be, and I don't even know if they'll see this, but a big thank you for the support. You really need parental like figures and role models when you feel like you are doing this alone. So just a big thank you for coming alongside, being in the hard with me, especially after the caving accident, and just seeing my potential when I couldn't.
That is lovely, and they might see it, so I will let you know for sure. But my last question is, if you could describe the first generation college experience in one word, what word would that be?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of a really good word. I think it would be metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, that's awesome. And why do you think metamorphosis would be your word?
I think because you come in to the program, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but I think you come in to college as this, or at least I did, I don't want to speak for everyone, but this like fragile cocoon, and you're kind of timid and like, do I let my wings out yet? Like, am I brave enough to do that? And I think there's this really beautiful transformation that happens from the timidity to confidence in, I can do this. I do have people who are kind of protecting the fragility of those moments. And I have people who are letting me fly and empowering me to do the things that I am ultimately called to do on this earth. So yeah, that's why I'm metamorphosis.
That is,
there you are.
I was so sorry, my internet, but that is beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and sharing your experience. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm going to stop recording, but thank you so much.